Hey, good afternoon. How's everybody doing? You're on Facebook Live. I had just something in my spirit here for about a week or so, so I'm gonna just I'm gonna talk to you about it. We're in the days of knowledge increasing, right? It says that in these days, knowledge would increase, and so with knowledge increasing, partially due to the information age, the World Wide Web, and the fact that anything that we want to know, or anything that we need to know, or anything that we think is true or not true, whatever information that we're looking for, it's not hard to find anymore, right? And because of that, knowledge is increasing, whether or not you're on the good side of that or on the bad side of it. There's more to know. It's easier to know, and information, knowledge is at our fingertips. And because of that, a lot of questions come up, a lot of necessary questions, a lot of needed questions come up concerning the Bible, concerning the church, concerning Christianity and the faith, you know what I mean? And I have many conversations with people in terms of wanting or considering leaving their churches. Okay, mostly what people express is that it's somewhere along the lines of I'm finding out certain things. They didn't teach me in the church. My pastor can't answer my questions. And now I'm thinking about leaving the church. Okay. If this is you, I want to tell you something very important. Okay. And first of all, what I want to say is because in all of these conversations, there's only one time in the span of about 6 years that I've ever suggested that a person leave their church. That is not something that pastors, I hope that pastors are doing. It's definitely and people will approach you. It's kind of like some people do want you to give them license, and you don't have license to tell people to leave their ministries. The one time I did it, was because this person was under obvious, demonic oppression. So this wasn't like a gospel preaching church. Okay, this was a this was something different. Okay, this was a Bible using church, but it was not. It was a church full of witchcraft and sorcery. And so as the information came, I knew that and I felt the alarm. Like, I felt the danger. And I still didn't quite suggest the person. What I did was told that person to fast, to do a complete fast, and then pray about it. Okay. But I knew at that point, that person was to leave. That person did leave, and they're much better off today. Okay. When people want to have this conversation, my first question, depending on now, a person can feel some type of way, but if a person is bad mouthing their leaders, that's not a conversation that we're going to have. I'm not having this conversation with people. Okay, so people aren't complaining to me about their leaders. All right, if that's what they want to do, then I'm the wrong person. Okay, because the first thing I'm going to ask is, well, why are you talking about your pastor this way, and what would they tell me about the truth of what really happened, right? So you don't want to get caught into a he say, she say, because if you can badmouth your leader, then I don't trust what you say anyway. Okay, so let's not fall for that. Now let's deal with the more traditional churches. The more traditional churches is a pastor and hopefully some ministers to assist the pastor in ministering. And then, you know, a congregation, you know, you have like your different ministries like a choir, Sunday school and things like that. Okay, so I'm just going to deal with the traditional church. Now listen, because knowledge is increasing, because there's a lot of questions that need to be answered, and a lot of questions that need to be asked. If you should never feel that you're going to leave your church because of what your leaders don't know. Okay. Now we don't quite have a Bible blueprint on what a pastor does. We do know that the pastor position is a leadership position, and we know that they are leaders of church, but we don't have a clear description per se. Biblically speaking, a pastor is more compared to a shepherd. Okay, and so you want to first and foremost see your pastor as a shepherd. That is the first function of a pastor. It's not to educate. Okay, education will be included in this description. The main purpose of a pastor is to protect the flock. Okay, so listen. This is why people should have prayed and sought the Lord before joining a ministry. Okay, because if you connect to a ministry that God sends you to, then you will have everything that you need. The mistake that we make is that we want to interview people, and we want to kind of say, okay, so I'm looking for a church that has this and that, and I want my preacher to preach this kind of preaching style. I need him to be expository. They have to have a really good children's ministry, and we want to build a church like Build-A-Bear, right? We want to build a church like Build-A-Bear, and you know, without praying, without consulting, and then we church hop until we find a church that fits our description. No, believing that churches are supposed to function in order to please the people. That's a lie. Okay. The only factor that should be in how you choose where you're going to worship, where you're going to take your family to worship, is did God say, and then did he confirm when I went to this church? Okay, because you'll know when you're at home. Okay, many people are attending a good church, but it's not the one that he chose for you, and so many people are not being properly covered. Okay, they don't have a shepherd who was specifically assigned to them, and many pastors don't understand the shepherd function. It's not to only educate, it's to protect. That means that your pastor should first and foremost know your soul, be able to detect you in the spirit in prayer, know about your life in a way that they can pray for you specifically, pray for your children specifically, cover you in the spirit, fight battles in the spirit that you can't fight. All of these things, it's protecting Jesus' sheep. That's what the main purpose of a pastor or shepherd is doing. All right. So if we get into this whole conversation about, well, my pastor doesn't know, he doesn't, he doesn't, I don't agree with his stance on the rapture. So what? What does that even mean? You know what I mean? It's the pettiness. It's the pettiness for me. I don't like the way my pastor, I don't like his teaching style. You know what I mean? Okay, so what? Ask yourself, is this the church that God called me to? Am I being fed? Am I growing in this environment? Am I protected? Right? Am I encouraged? Am I activated? Okay, those are the things that you will tell. As far as the academia aspect, okay, that means your education, because churches do not revolve around what's being taught. Okay, if you're just raising up more institutions that are teaching institutions, that is a failure of ministry. Just Bible teaching, okay, that's failure. All right. What the Bible does command us to study to show ourselves approved as a workman unto God, who doesn't need to be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth. Every person should have an immaculate study life. Okay. And so I don't know any pastors that don't encourage their members to read the Bible, to pray often, and to fast often, which would be, those will be the three basic building blocks of a person's faith. I've never met a pastor that did not encourage their members to do those things. Okay. And I would probably say 95% of members don't do those things. They don't read, they don't pray a lot, and they don't fast. Okay. And half of them won't attend prayer meetings. They'll attend, Sunday church, but they won't attend Bible study weekly, and they will not attend prayer meetings. Okay. So don't start to consider because of internet conversation, because of what they're talking about on Facebook. People are talking about the book of Enoch. I read the book of Enoch. I teach from it. It's authentic, but that is not the issue. That is not, those are advanced issues to where people who are called to look in that direction need to look in that direction. Everybody doesn't need to be reading those books. Okay. If you don't live in the word, then you won't know what to do with the book of Enoch or Dead Sea Scrolls anyway. You should stay away from them until you get disciplined enough to study for the next 15 years. And maybe you can get around to those books. Okay. Everybody wants to know about the book of Enoch, and everybody want to know about the fallen angels. Yes, we teach on that stuff too. It's relevant for what I'm called to do. I do not suggest that everybody looks into those things. Okay. My congregation needs to know those type of things. Okay. But I do not suggest that people look into those things. I suggest people that just get a prayer life and just read your Bible and study it more. Okay. So your pastor is not judged, definitely not judged by you, but they are not judged by their ability to fit your perfect mold, your perfect model of what a pastor is. That's not their job. Their job is to protect your soul. Their job is to do what you can't do on your own, which you cannot protect your own soul from. You need covering, and a pastor will cover his flock. Okay. And if we study to show ourselves approved, then yes, you will automatically know some things that maybe your pastor doesn't know, and it's okay. All right, there's nothing wrong with that. So because churches aren't based on their teaching, right? Because that's what people think. People think that a pastor just stands up in a pulpit and he just reads the Bible and teaches the Bible, and that's all a pastor does. That's the bare minimum of what a pastor does. Okay. Pastors are going through. Pastors are always mistreated. Pastors get the blame for everything, right? That's the life of a pastor, and your pastor will love you through all of this stuff. Okay. Pastors aren't mistreating people like people are saying. Okay. People are mistreating pastors, because I know pastors, and I've been one. And so I know what really happens is that most of you who are bad-mouthing pastors is because they wouldn't put up with your stuff. And most of you talk about how you left the church when really you got kicked out of church because you kept out on so much mess. And that's why I don't listen to people gossip about other pastors. I don't do that, because I know what really happens in churches from pastors. I've been one, so I know what happens. Right? And most of these pastors around here are not bad pastors. They're not. Okay. They're not perfect. But then again, it's not your job to make sure they're perfect. Most of them are doing their job by covering you and holding you accountable. That's what people don't want. People don't want accountability. And so people are looking for an excuse to leave their ministries. And you're not going to get that excuse from me. The only reason that you should leave a ministry, the only reason, right, is if it bears witness in your spirit, and that's what God told you, right? Or 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 this will be included that this is not a Bible teaching church and that you've been under a false word. By all means, get out, right? You have churches that are very controlling. You have churches that are literally led by witches and warlocks. Okay, when you find out that stuff is going on, you can't stay. Okay, but as far as your pastor can't answer the hard questions. Okay, guess what? The church doesn't operate in an island anyway. There is somebody in the body of Christ that can answer your questions after you've prayed about it, and if you didn't get it that way. Okay, so churches are islands. Churches have helps. Okay. I want to encourage somebody to just stay put and pray about, because that's how you're going to know whether or not you're going to leave. It's not based on what's being taught. As long as the gospel is being preached, that is the main thing that should be taught. And there are many ministries that just won't be that deep. That's fine. But they are teaching what's necessary for the people who God sends to that church. It's sufficient. Okay. So churches, I love the way my apostle explains it. He said each ministry is like a fingerprint, right? It's like a fingerprint. No two are alike. In that they will also have a specific crowd that is drawn to that ministry to get what they specifically need. All right. And so, leaders don't recruit. If leaders are spirit led, we don't recruit just numbers. We don't want to just see numbers. We want who belongs here. Right. So if you visit my ministry, I'll serve you, I'll feed you, and I'll give you everything that I have while you're there. Right. But we will only have a conversation whether or not you're a member, if that's what God told you. Right. Many people, they want to interview me. It's kind of like, like I'm auditioning, like we're auditioning, to serve you. I'm like you don't get this. Like, I'm not trying to build numbers. I'm trying to build people. Right. So if you give me 3 people, you give me 2 people, you give me 1 person. If that's all I'm serving, I'm going to give that person everything that I have. Right. Because they're a soul and they're valuable. Right. And so we want to see numbers because we want to see the kingdom grow. If we know how to touch people's lives, then we want more lives to be touched. Absolutely. All right. But true pastors aren't just trying to build numbers for the sake of show, or just to say we have this many members, or because it's lucrative because it's not. Okay. We want you to know if you belong here. That's what we want to know. But as long as you come, we're going to serve you everything that we have while you're there. All right. So that's whether you're a member of another church, or you're still a member of God's kingdom. So your church home might be somewhere else, but we belong to the same King. You understand? All right. The only way that you should leave your ministry is if that's what the Lord told you. That means that you need to hear his voice, and you need to ask yourself, am I being covered? Am I being protected by my pastor? And am I growing here? If those things aren't happening, then you can start to pray a prayer and say, well, Lord, do you want me to go somewhere else? All right. So that's all I wanted to share with you today. And I pray that you'll make the right decisions. All right. And I pray that if you're not, if there are any comments, you're just watching today. Okay, that's good. Okay. Well, God bless you guys. You can have a great one. Okay.